Hey there, Sunbird Nation. It's been a while since I made a video. I apologize, but there were circumstances beyond my control. I've been having a hell of a time with the transmissions of my Sunbird. This is the one I rebuilt about a month or two ago to replace the one in my car that I had previously rebuilt. It worked fine, but the shifter was sloppy. I wanted to take it out and fix the problem. So I figured I'd rebuild this one, stick this one in, maybe build it a little heavier duty than the other one. And the sad part of the story is I built this one, stuck it in, and it had no third gear. I screwed something up. So the bottom line is this one had to come out, and then I had to fix the other one, the red one, the one that's back in my car. This is the one my builder modified a long time ago, and I took it apart and rebuilt it because I had no second gear. It works great. I screwed up the shift lever, so it was sloppy when you move it to the gears, which is irritating, but also if you don't have it completely in the right gear, the fluid can't flow. There's a restriction on the manual valve. It can't really flow through, so they warn you, when you have slop in a shifter, make sure it's completely in gear or you'll burn the tranny out eventually from lack of fluid flow. So I wanted to fix that quick as I could. And then I fell victim to the might as wells. If you don't know what that is, when you're doing something, like say you pull a wheel off your car, you might say to yourself, well, while I'm here, I might as well check the brakes, or I might as well paint my caliper, or I might as well do this, and it snowballs. So while I had that transmission apart, I said, I might as well modify it a little here and there for higher line pressure, harder shifts. That's really the goal of what I'm after here. So while I had it open, I changed some things in the valve body. This is the actual valve body I was playing with. If you follow what they do with 204R transmissions, they typically change the TV spring. That's the spring under the TV valve right here. You can see it, but there's a spring in there. And they put in a longer spring, a heavier spring, a stiffer spring, whatever. And also the pressure regulator, that goes in this bore right here. The pressure regulator, you put a heavier spring in or you shim the spring. And also in 204Rs, you put in a bigger TV boost valve. That's a valve that moves within a bushing. In my case, it's this aluminum bushing. So you can't buy those. I mean, I can't get this stuff anymore. Maybe in the old days you could find this stuff, but it's not like anyone builds high performance 125 transmissions that says, oh, you want this boost valve and this reverse boost valve and this bushing. I don't think it was ever that popular. So you kind of had to hunt and measure and say, oh, this one happens to have a 300 boost valve. This one has a 350 boost valve. This one has a 400 boost valve. I want the biggest one that gives you the most fluid line rise of pressure. So not knowing that, I have to just go through transmissions and take the TV boost valve out and measure it. So mine was a 0.365 valve. I have an 86 transmission I got from a friend of mine. I bought it off him. He's a new friend of mine. That one there. That's just a regular old 2-liter. Actually, it's 1.8, so 86. It's a 1.8 Sunbird or a Skyhawk, I think it was actually. Tranny. That has like a I forget if it was a 299 or a 289. It's got a tiny little boost valve in it. Like I said, mine was a 0.365, so mine was bigger. So, figuring that was the biggest one they made, I thought I'd make one, so I made one, which means you have to bore out the aluminum bushing. Unless you have an abundance of these on the shelf, you have to modify the one you have, and it's a one-way street. Like a friend of mine used to always say, it's easy taking metal out, it's hard putting it back in. So I was trying to be very careful to modify it, and sometimes careful does not dovetail easily into what I do, and I messed up, and I bored it a little bigger than I wanted. So I just made a bigger boost valve. So the bottom line is I ended up making a 0.475 boost valve, and there was some issues, I'll say, that goes along with that. And I made videos of it along the way. I was saving it till I was done to say, hey, here's what I did, here's how I did it, and here's what happened. Ta-da! But the ta-da never came. It was more of a, oh, shit. This whole tale is one of sadness. It didn't end well. I don't think I'm really any better off than I was before. But I will chronicle it and lay it out to you. I'll probably break this video up into at least 2 pieces, if not more, because it's involved. I mean, I spent a month and a half doing this. I started this in December, and we're in the beginning of February, and I just got it all straightened out last weekend. So So I will edit in some video and you can see how I took it apart, made the valve, modified the bushing, did all that crap. But as I said, it's a tale fraught with sadness because in the end, I couldn't get the new boost valve to work. I had no TV pressure rise. You know, you pull the cable, TV goes up. I could not make it do that. I don't know what I did wrong. I have a few suspicions, but having this thing apart, God, it must have been 10 times, and swapping the transmission twice. Right now, I kind of want to rest a little bit, so I'm probably just going to chronicle what I did, chronicle what happened. Maybe there's some transmission builders out there or hydraulic engineers who are watching can say, this is what you did wrong, dumbass, and they can educate me. I don't know. We'll find out. I did talk to a couple of guys online who work at Transgo, and one of them had like zero input for me. The other one tried to help me. So he tried. I mean, I appreciate his help. I definitely appreciate anybody's help. And he got me a few places that I wanted to get to, but ultimately I could not make it work. So I haven't given up. I do have the 3.1 and the 125 out of the Cavalier I junked last year. Someday I'll pull the valve body apart and see if that has a bigger boost valve than my transmission, my Turbo Sunbird transmission. I gotta believe they're the same one, but who knows? I don't know. I mean, as a last resort, if I couldn't get the transmission straightened out, I dug this out of my basement. This is my last spare 125. This is actually a GM Reman. It's a Turbo Sunbird transmission. It's got the tag on it that says, you know, PPC. I think it's actually PC is the code, but this has been sitting in my basement since the early 2000s, so it's an oldie. It's greasy. The fluid is decent, so as a last resort, I would pressure wash it, pull the pans off it, make sure there's no debris in it, and stick it in my car if I really couldn't get mine fixed, but I got mine fixed, so this one I will take apart and go through it and see if it's healthy or not. And then I gotta fix this guy, see what broke. So when I'm done, hopefully I'll have a whole shelf full of ready to go 125s in my car, but I've got a ways to go between now and then. So let me stop here and intersplice some footage I took already, and you can see what I went through. Unfortunately, I did not take any footage of my endless removing of the valve body through the wheel well. It's tedious. If you've ever done it, it's not hard. It's just, 45 minutes of, drain the tranny, pull the side cover off, take the valve body off, put it on the bench, clean up your mess, fix whatever you want to fix, throw it back together again. It's just, monotonous, and I must have done it easily 5 times in the car and numerous times on the bench. So anyway, that's the story. Let me splice in some video and let this sad tale unfold. It occurred to me I never filmed all the time I spent in this left front wheel well, taking the valve body in and out and making my adjustments, but this is basically the view. You just pop the side cover off, you drain the pan of course. Take the side cover off and the valve body is right there in front of you. I will show you a trick of something I did to make it much, much easier to change things. So stand by and I'll video it. So here's the valve body. I got the sun shining through my window. Sorry for the reflection and glare. But this is the roll pin for the TV valve itself. And this is the one for the pressure regulator. They normally go on this side. They push in from here. So to take them out, you have to take the valve body off the transmission. But being the crafty devil I am, I thought, you know what? If I put them in from this side, then when you take off the TV linkage, that bolts on here, that bolts on there, they are exposed, and you can just take a pair of side cutters and just pry them out. Boom, boom. If you get a Transgo, or I think Superior also, shift kit, it comes with a longer solid steel pin, and you can flatten the edge down so it's more pronounced and it'll be easier to tap in and get it to stay. Or you can use just a regular conventional coil pin. Just make sure it's long enough that you can drive it in and leave enough hanging out. You can grab it with a pair of side cutters. Then you just pop them out, and then you pull these valves right out like I did. I did this in the car. So a nice simple trick. If you plan on playing with your TV valve, TV boost valve, and your pressure regulator. If you're not, then don't bother. But I like to play with things I shouldn't play with and cause myself trouble and pain and anguish. So that's why I did it that way. So this is a handy little trick you can utilize. I mean, your pressure regulator is here. Say you want to adjust the oil pressure in the transmission, the line pressure. You can add shims to it. You can either use crappy washers, or I bought these from MasterCard. They're 20 thousandths each, and they are they're actually metric, 60 millimeter by 10 millimeter by 0.5 millimeter. Like I said, they're 20. I believe they're 20 thousandths each. Yeah, I think the 0.5 is 20 thousandths. So you can use those if you want. One other thing I have learned from this Odyssey I've been on is do not increase your line pressure too greatly. I was having trouble getting third gear, and as soon as I started backing the oil pressure down, it was fine. And when I say too much, typically you have between 55, I think, and 75 is your basic 125 transmission line pressure in park and neutral. And at one point I had 125, 130. So I had to get it back down to a sane level. In a 204R, the rule of thumb is don't go over, I believe it's 100 pounds of line pressure at idle, or you have second gear starts. It won't start in first. You have to back the line pressure down by changing the pressure regulator spring, or if you have shims in it, or a bigger boost valve, whatever. I thought the 125 would follow suit, but you always have first gear, but you don't get third gear. That's what I have found. I could be wrong. Transmission guys might watch this and say, nope, that's not true. Fine, tell me what you know, but that's what I noticed. So I have the pressure down to about 85 pounds in park and neutral now, which to me is great. It's on definitely the high end of stock. I don't think they go more than 75 stock, so I'm 10 over. And there's no shims in there or anything. I'm using the 204R, just a stock 204R pressure regulator spring. I might try shimming it a little more. I may not, because I think that's plenty. I don't want to get greedy. But just, telling you what I found in my experience saves you some trouble. So once again, I'm inside a 125 transmission. I just can't seem to get enough of these things. This is the original one from my car that I rebuilt to replace the red one that was in my car that my builder built many years ago, and I rebuilt 2 years ago because the band let go. I had no second gear. I modified this one to have the same servo setup as that one. That one. It's got the modified piston, it's got no tail on it, and blah, blah, blah. Block the hole right here for the check valve. And this one didn't have third gear. It would feel like it shifted, but it would just kind of slide between second and nothing. So I swapped it out, took it apart. I don't see anything wrong with it. Other than my band was a little bit hot on one side. You can see it got hot, and that was actually the bottom. It goes in like this. That was the bottom of the band. It applies from this thing here. And the drum also had a heat track in it. It wasn't like scorched, like rainbow, nothing like that. So it got hot. Not terribly hot, but it got hot. Which tells me it was applying when it shouldn't have been applying, or riding on it all the time. So I did a bunch more research. I talked to a couple of guys online. One of the guys works at Transgo. He was very helpful. He doesn't like the idea of this whole piston servo setup, but it works in this transmission. It should work in this transmission too. So I went back through it, cleaned everything up. Everything was fine inside. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I think there was two things wrong. When I took this apart, I swear this piston was like up like that, which shows me it was applied. How could it be stuck? Look at it. So I measured the land where the lip seal goes again, and I measured a bunch of stock ones. Here's my pile of stock ones. And these things are all over the map. I was taking measurements, and I was making notes, like this one, the OD is 2-inch 665. That's this big section right here. My finger is. Well, I take that back. It was 2779, and this land is 2665. And I also made a note, the ID, where the lip seal goes, is 2-inch 410. This one, it's 259 on this land right here. And this outer one is 2772. And where the lip seal rides is 2378. That's different. And there was, some differences in all of them. This one's 2-inch 410 again with lip seal rides. they're all over the map. So 2 changes I made was that I decreased my ID with a lip seal ride. I want to say it was 2-inch 600 or something like that. So I knocked it down so it's more in line with these guys in the 2-inch 450, 480 area, whatever. It's a little more than these, but a lot less than it was. And the other thing I did was all of them except one have this inner land right here, lower than the outer. One of them, it's probably in a bag here. This one. Yeah, this one, they're identical. They're the same height. I don't know why they're all different except that one. But what I came up with was when you put the seal in it and you lay the seal back, I mean, I could probably show you on one of these if it has a seal. Yeah, this one. If you put the seal in it and you lay the seal back, this outer lip and this inner lip of the piston, the same height, the seal has nowhere to go. It can't fold down upon itself, you know what I mean? So transmission fluid comes in behind the piston, inflates this lip seal, it blows it up like a, like a balloon or like a jellyfish, it blows up and it pushes in. And then when it wants to unstroke, it collapses everything. It has a return spring right there and it pushes it back. And the lip seal has to relax. So to me, if I had the lip seal the same height, front and back, it really can't go anywhere. It's always riding against the bore. So I laid it back. So it's like that. I think I knocked it back 20 thou or so. I mean, I could probably pop it out and show you if you want to see it, but yeah, you see I knocked it down. So one of the things the guy from Transgo said was, I don't want a return spring. And he said, you got to have a return spring, use a stock piston. But I mean, look at this thing. It goes into the band right there, okay? And I'm pushing on it, applying the band. Now watch. Bam. Band pressure pushes it back. I mean, sure, I bought some short springs. I was going to machine the face of this thing to take a spring and try to set the relationship between the spring seat and the case. But it's like, do I need to do that? I mean, geez. I mean, look at this one. This is a stiff-ass spring. And it's recessed. It only sticks out like 1 coil, 1.5 coils. I don't think it's there to return this thing. I think it's a cushion. So when the piston applies, instead of bottoming on the band and locking everything up, hydraulic pressure is strong. I think it's just a cushion for that, because look at it, it floats on this axle, you know what I mean, the pin. So I don't think it's there as a return spring. So I don't think it does that. And there is no return spring other than that, so I don't think it needs a return spring. And again, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a tranny guru. I know what I know, and that ain't a whole lot. So ask me about Turbo Sunbirds and Oldsmobile 455s. I know a lot about those, but now I know about Pontiac overhead cam 6 cylinders too. So anyway, I think I had it too tight also. Transgo says to have the running clearance in the band between 30 thousandths and 80 thousandths. And the way you set it is with these shims. You put them in here, in the bore, and they bottom out of this case cover, and that pushes it in and la la la. So I had 2 in there. I had a 40, it's like 40, 41, and then I had a 60, which is up here somewhere. I threw it up there. It was 62 really, so it's a 16th inch plus 40. So I had about 110, a little over 110, 112 shim in here to push this thing in. So, instead of riding here, well, it sits about there when it's all assembled. It might have been riding there. Whatever. So I think I had it too tight. So I measured it again. I stuck feeler gauges in here between the band and the drum with a 40,000 shim in here. I now have 55,000, 60,000 between the band and the drum. Because it's on this side and this side, you double it, because if you got 55 here and 55 here, if you take them out and you move this drum over to all the way to touch the band on this side, you got the 55 you had here plus the 55 you had there, that's 110. So it's got 110 thousandths clearance now. My builder, because I don't have, the tail and the end of this thing, the return spring or the cushion spring, whatever you want to call it, I don't have all that stuff. He said you really should set this thing between a 16th and an 1/8 inch of clearance. So that's what I've always tried to run. And I have 110, so I'm right on the money. Usually I set them in here, I use a vernier caliper, and I just measure the stroke. So I make sure I have like 100,000 stroke. From fully applied, that's like 100,000 stroke, which may be too tight. I mean, You know, now I'm gonna have a lot more clearance than I had visually when it's all in the car, stacked up and running. I don't know anymore. So that's what I'm gonna do. If it's too loose, you can just throw shims in. That's easy. Just pull the pan off, pull this cover off, 4 bolts later, and one shim, you're back in business. You can make it tight. Making it tight's easy. Taking the shims out is harder. So that's what I'm doing. It probably has to do with relationship of the pin. You know, there are different pins. There's 3 different pins. You go by the stripe on it. You know, groove rather. Mine has 1 groove. This one over here has 2 grooves. They also make a pin with no grooves. If you go on the service manual, the ATSG manual, it tells you, where the hell is it? There's a section on servos. Yeah, right there. Short pin is 2 grooves. Medium pin is 1 groove. The long pin is no grooves. So this pin has 1 groove, it's a medium pin. That pin over there with 2 grooves, it's a short pin. So I could buy some more pins and juggle these things around a little more if I needed to, but I think I'm where I need to be. So we'll find out. There's no reason this transmission should not act like that transmission. Everything in it is the same. So that's where I am with this thing, and that's, let's see what happens. I'm not gonna be trying this thing anytime soon, unless that one goes belly up on me. So this will sit here, and hopefully when I need it, it will work. But that's what I did, and that's my theory. And if you guys have another theory, by all means, lambaste me in the comments, but that's what I'm going with. Talk to you later. Thanks for watching.